everyone, my name is Caitlin and I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner and nurse, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my tips for phone interviews. I've been a nurse for 6 years, as well as a nurse practitioner for 1 year, and so I've been on lots of interviews and lots of phone interviews. Currently I'm dealing with the phone interview process during the COVID-19 crisis of 2020. So these are my tips for you. I hope you enjoy them, and let's get into the video. So my first tip is to know who you're interviewing with. So especially if you're a brand new nurse who's going to be phone interviewing for the first time, just know if this is the first time they've ever contacted you, there's a very good chance you're just talking to the nurse recruiter. So nurse recruiters are a separate department who basically bring in nurses, and they kind of pre-screen nurses before nurses go for the interview with the unit managers. And they're really just looking for any red flags. They want to make sure that your history that you're giving them matches your resume, that you've never been a convicted felon, and that you can pass a drug screen. They'll also kind of give you the basics that the company has to offer. So these people are probably the best ones to ask as far as like tuition reimbursement, if that's important to you, 401ks, health benefits. They're really great for that. This one is one that you really shouldn't get too nervous about. Don't lose sleep over it. Again, this is typically like a 10-minute interview, okay? And it's just a pre-screening, so don't get super overly nervous. Then there's the type of phone interview that you can be having with the actual nurse manager or director. So this one is the one that counts, right? This is the one that's with your potential future manager. Maybe you're having this over the phone because you're in the middle of a pandemic. Maybe you're having this over the phone because you're trying to get a job out of state. Whatever the case may be, they happen. These are the ones that count. These are the ones you want to be more prepared for. And these are the ones that you can expect to take probably 30 minutes, depending. You also want to know who you're interviewing with in that situation. So sometimes when you're interviewing with the nurse manager, you're just interviewing with the nurse manager, but sometimes it's a panel interview. So maybe you have a nurse manager, 1 or 2 supervisors, a nurse educator, whatever the case may be. You might be having more than one person in that interview with you. So it's important to know who's going to be there so that you feel more prepared and ready, and you know who all you're addressing. Also important to know, is this going to strictly be a phone interview, or is this going to be a video conference interview? So is this going to be over Zoom or Skype? Very important to know, because obviously if it is going to be over video, then you kind of need to do your hair, put some actual clothes on so you look a little more presentable, versus if it's just over the phone, you can be in your pajamas. But either way, make sure you know. My next tip would be then, if it is a video conference interview, make sure you test your technology beforehand. So if you're going to be on Zoom, open up your Zoom account, send a request, and have a video conference with a friend so you can make sure that you're presentable on screen, that your camera works, that your speaker works, because the last thing you want to do is wait all this time to get this interview and then you go on and they can't hear you, right? That doesn't look good. So make sure your technology is ready to go and you're ready to go. Tip number 2, know your job description. This is important in all steps of the interview process. It's really hard to answer someone's questions that they have for you related to the job if you don't know the job description, okay? And I get it, especially if you're someone who's looking for a new job, and maybe you're a brand new nurse you're like, I'll take whatever I can get, and that's okay, I get it, but when you're interviewing, you don't want that kind of attitude, right? So make sure you know, and don't feel bad to ask. Say, if they're like, hi, this is so-and-so calling you from Hospital Z. Wonderful. I'm sure you can see I've applied for a couple positions within your hospital. Can you please let me know which position we're discussing today? That way you know and you're ready to go. Tip number 3, you need to prep your questions, okay? This is important for any step of an interview. It's more important when you're doing that over the phone. So there's plenty of videos out there on different interview questions. I will say nursing questions that you always get asked, you will always get asked the tell me about yourself question, and quite frankly, I think that's any interview. They aren't looking for your life story. No one wants to sit here for 30 minutes while you go into extreme detail of why you became a nurse, right? Just a simple, I wanted to take care of people, so I started my schooling here. If you're a brand new nurse who's never worked before, maybe you're just graduating, you can include, I did this many hours on med surg and this many hours in OB and this many hours in surgery. Include those kind of things. If you're an experienced nurse, I started my career here. I worked there for so long, and then I went to job 2. Just kind of walk them through a quick little synopsis of your history. They're also going to ask you about any kind of licensure and certification you have. So this is where it's important to make sure that you say, okay, yes, I am licensed in that state. I have my RN or my APRN in that state. Certifications are things like BLS, ALS, PALS, trauma certified. Maybe you're a certified surgical nurse, a certified pediatric nurse. If you're an advanced practice nurse, who's your certifying board for your nurse practitioner. Make sure you have all of those ready to go. Now, if you are applying out of state and maybe you don't have that state license yet, know where you are in the process, so that way you can let them know. I have not been approved for my licensure in that state yet. I applied on this date. Currently, I'm waiting on my background check. Whatever it is, let them know, okay? The couple other questions they always ask you, they will always ask you about a time that you were dealing with a difficult family member, patient, or staff. So make sure you have your story ready, and always make sure that the story makes you sound good, okay? We've all been there, especially any of my experienced nurses watching this video. We have all been there where it was your 5th night in a row, and that one nurse who's always awful just pushed you over the edge and you cussed her out. Don't tell them about that time, okay? Tell them about the time that, about the time where it was like, yeah, I was dealing with this difficult family member, but I realized that it was just because they were so anxious and they had lost control, and so helping them find areas where they could have control was really helpful to them. That's the kind of thing they're looking for. Or maybe if it was a difficult staff member, like, yes, I was having a difficult time with this nurse. I went directly to her. I told her what was wrong. She didn't fix it, so then I followed my chain of command and I went here. Things like that. They also always want to know about a time you broke the rules or you made a difficult decision. Again, don't tell them about a time that you broke the rules and it ended badly. Tell them about a time that you did it and it worked out good. Maybe you had a patient who had been awful for the last few days and they were so upset because all they wanted to do was go outside and get some fresh air. So you broke the rules and you took them off the unit for 5 minutes so they could get some fresh air. The big thing they're looking for here is that, yes, I broke the rules, but I broke them to help my patient have a better experience. That's kind of a good thing you want to look for, because those are all times where we appreciate it. Also, maybe it was a time that you broke the rules, but you broke them to help a coworker out. Maybe, I'm supposed to be at huddle every morning at 7 a.m. and I missed it because I was restocking the room for, the next nurse coming in. I wanted to make sure it was ready to go for her. Okay, right? Something that, yes, you broke the rules, but you broke them in order to help someone else. Other things they always ask, what does fantastic or great patient care look like for you? What does compassionate patient care look like for you? Why you? Why do you want this job? And this is the part where you really need to shine and really sell yourself. Why do they need you, basically? Another common question that you'll see a lot is, what are your goals? Nurse managers do not want to hire someone for 6 months. They want someone for, at least a year or 2. The hiring process is really difficult on them. It's very costly on the company, and so they want someone who's going to kind of stick around. So helping them kind of see your career goals. Sometimes it's not even just, maybe you're not you don't have to want to be there the rest of your life. You can just say, hey, I want to be here for 2 to 5 years, and then I'm hoping to move to outpatient, or I'm hoping to do X, Y, and Z, but I want my experience here first. Any of that would be okay. Next tip would definitely be to make sure you sound eloquent. So this ties into all of our prep beforehand. So this is why you check the technology beforehand. This is why you prep all your question answers. So that way when you get on the phone with them or you get on the video chat with them, you sound educated, you sound eloquent, and you sound ready. They don't want you saying like or every other sentence. They don't want you sounding like you just rolled out of bed and you have no idea what you're doing, right? You want to sound ready. And this is especially important if you're doing this strictly over the phone, because remember, they can't see you, okay? So they can't see your cheeks flush. They can't see you awkwardly playing with your hands, right? So they don't know that you're nervous, and so to them it might just come off as you don't care. So make sure that you're ready and that you sound eloquent. Have your questions ready, okay? It's important that you ask questions. They will always give you an opportunity at the end of an interview to discuss your questions. Have some questions ready. It shows that you care. It shows that you want this, and also that you're prepared. So whatever kind of questions are important to you, what is the culture of the unit like? What was the most difficult decision you had to make as a nurse manager? What is the pay? What can my expected orientation be? Things like that. Now, with this when you ask about expected orientation, okay, don't make it sound like you need to be coddled, but just kind of be realistic with them. So, as an example, for me, I have done 6 years. I've only done kids, and I was interviewing for an emergency room position where you would have to sometimes take care of adults. And I told her, I said, listen, if you were like, hey, here's 2 weeks of orientation, go do it, and all I was going to see was kids, I could hang. But I haven't taken care of an adult in 6 years. So am I going to have someone that I can go to if and when I have questions? And really, if you throw me directly into an adult trauma, I'm probably going to I'm not going to know what to do, and that's not going to be safe. It's okay to have conversations like that. Just kind of getting an idea. Also kind of what the hours are going to be like. So yeah, maybe you're signing up for 312s, but for the first 3 weeks that you're orienting, you're going to be working 5 days a week, right? Things like that you need to know. Another question you can always ask is if there's a shadowing opportunity. I do think that job shadows are very important in the interview process, especially as, a new nurse, because you may think, I want to do cardiac ICU. I've always wanted to do cardiac ICU. And then you get on that floor and you're on there for 5 minutes and you think, wow, I do not want to do this for even another hour, right? So I do think job shadowing is important. Sometimes it's not always feasible, but it's fair to ask and see if it's a possibility. My final tip for you is don't be afraid to say no. I think that especially when you're a brand new nurse, you don't want to turn anything down because you just want a job. But they're always hiring nurses. There will always be more jobs. Okay, so don't settle for something that doesn't sound good. One of the things in nursing that you hear all the time is nurse gut, okay? Nurse gut comes into play every day, all the time. And if you're sitting there on this phone interview or in the job shadow and you just think this is not the unit for me, then maybe it's not for you, and that's okay. Don't feel bad about saying no. No manager is ever going to be upset with you because you said no, okay? They want someone who wants to work for them, and they want you to be happy usually too. So always thank them. Always take the interview. If nothing else, it's really great practice, and know that it's okay. All right. So those are my tips for interviewing. I hope that they're helpful for some of you. If they are, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you at my next video. Bye.